Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Community Choice Energy in Stockton, Challenges and Opportunities. Today's webinar is co-hosted by the Climate Center, yours truly, and Rise Stockton. We're very pleased to be co-hosting with Rise Stockton, and thank you all for joining us. We have about 80 some odd people registered and about 40 of you logged in so far. So hopefully folks will be continuing to log in, and I'll give it a minute here for that to happen. And let me move to the next slide. So on today's webinar, we are honored to have Vice Mayor of Stockton, Dan Wright, who will give us a bit of a perspective on community choice energy from the City of Stockton's point of view. And we also have Jasmine Leek of Third City, who is also a member organization of Rise Stockton, to talk to us about Rise Stockton and all the wonderful things they're doing with the Transformative Climate Communities program and how they view the emergence of community choice energy. And then also we have Don Bray of Silicon Valley Clean Energy, who is the Director of Account Services and Community Relations for Silicon Valley Clean Energy, one of the 21 operational community choice agencies in California. And Don will give us a bit of an update on some of the programs that they've been administering that respond to community needs. And last but not least, our own Davis Harper of the Climate Center, our Community Outreach Specialist for Stockton and San Joaquin County. He's actually going to be up first to give a bit of a CCA 101 to just sort of explain to folks who are new to community choice what we're talking about here. What is community choice energy? So that's our lineup for today, and we do hope you enjoy the webinar. Just a few housekeeping points. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with everyone who has registered. We're keeping everyone in listen-only mode throughout the duration of the webinar. You have a chat or a Q&A panel should be at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and enter your questions at any time. I mean, you can put a question in there right now if you want. And also, if your question is directed to a specific person, please let us know. And I also should mention we have one more staff member on board today. Nina Turner is our sort of troubleshooter in the background to help with the questions and also in case anything goes sideways here on tech things, as they sometimes do. And then we will save the last 10 or 15 minutes of the webinar for Q&A. So, but again, please enter your questions at any time. We do want to thank our sponsor, Calpine Energy Solutions. Calpine Energy Solutions is the premier provider of data management and customer contact center services for community choice aggregation. That's the formal legal name of what this is, community choice energy is. In California for the past decade, Calpine has been a trusted partner for the CCA community, serving 17 different operating CCAs and managing customer data for over 3.5 million meters across the state. Calpine Energy Solutions' best-in-class back office support services help guide CCA clients from initial launch through mass enrollment phases and beyond. This, combined with years of billing experience, electronic data interchange expertise, customized implementation planning, and robust management, enable Calpine's CCA clients to be successful and achieve their long-term mission. So thank you very much, Calpine, for your ongoing support of our work. And so with that, I am now going to hand things off to Davis Harper, our San Joaquin County community organizer. Davis, you're going to need to take yourself off mute, and I'll hand it over to you, and I'll move the slides for you.
All right, thank you very much, Woody. First off, thanks again, everybody, for being here, to all the panelists, and to all who are viewing in from home as well. So I'm going to be giving a kind of basic overview of what community choice energy is. Again, my name is Davis Harper, and I am the San Joaquin County organizer for the Climate Center. Go ahead and move to the next slide, please. Alrighty, so Community Choice Energy is a local not-for-profit program that buys and in some instances can generate electricity for businesses, residents, and actually municipal accounts as well. Essentially, Community Choice Energy agencies are these not-for-profit public electricity service providers. So they allow local governments to buy electricity. And so this was enabled by state law in 2002. And the state legislature was really looking to provide customers an alternative option in their electricity service provider. And basically what had been a regulated monopoly for over a century. So again, just bringing choice to electricity service. And these agencies, which community choice aggregators, we'll call CCAs from here on out, that's what I'll be referring to. They partner with investor-owned utilities like PG&E, who is still responsible for delivery services. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. A really important, or one last thing that was on the last slide is that they are opt-out programs, meaning that customers would be automatically enrolled when a CCA is formed, but they can opt out at any point in time and go back with PG&E if that's their choice, hence the term choice. So the way it works is the Community Choice Agency is responsible really only for the generation part of the electricity system. In Stockton's case, PG&E would still be owning and maintaining their distribution infrastructure. They would be responsible for delivering that electricity to the city, doing metering and billing and customer service as well. And how it really works is it's not necessarily a municipality, again, but it's a kind of blend between the investor-owned utility model and the municipality model. And we can go to the next one. So where is this already happening? For some kind of statewide context, over half the state's population has or is developing community choice energy. The first CCA launched in Marin in 2010. And then in 2018, there was a big boom, about 10 CCAs launched. And now in 2020, we are at over 21 operational agencies, several counties and cities, hundreds of elected officials, and electricity service providers that are serving over 11 million customers. So definitely, again, in a kind of booming moment for CCA. And I want to take you to the next slide to talk about really why and look into what some of the big benefits are. So this first point, CCAs, again, being locally based, not-for-profit electricity providers, they're able to take reserve funds and put them toward programs that respond to specific community needs, which I think is really the most exciting part of what a CCA can do. So essentially, they're able to run programs that meet the needs of the community in timely manners. Sonoma Clean Power is always an example I come back to. Their Advanced Energy Rebuild Program after the 2017 Wine Country fires basically gave cost incentives to allow homeowners to rebuild their homes with energy efficient and sustainable building materials. So that's a really great example of what CCAs can do in times of crisis to meet the very specific needs of their community. And more traditionally, they're able to offer programs to help fund solar installation and battery backup, which can definitely save customers money. A lot of them have been interested in helping electrify buildings in their service area, transportation. East Bay Community Energy is one that is exploring a shared solar ownership pilot program that would essentially help residents and businesses develop their own renewable energy projects that sell power back to the CCA. And most recently, I'm not going to talk about this too much because this will get covered later. CCAs have collectively been donating millions of dollars to COVID-19 relief efforts from a wide range of ways, donating to local food banks, community-based orgs, and the like. So moving on to this next point, CCAs are able to offer rates that are competitive with or lower than the existing utility service provider. That's often when they look to launch, that's a very important part of the CCA is that they'll be able to provide those competitive rates. And what we're seeing is they've also been able to provide fairly more stable rates. So they're not coming back multiple times a year asking folks for a rate increase for their power generation. costs. Another big benefit is this local control and transparency. So what this does, again, is it gives customers, right, businesses, residents, a choice in their electricity provider, rather than just having the one default, and that can introduce competition in the electricity market, and just a whole, slew of benefits that comes with giving the city the ability to decide what sources of energy their residents are actually buying. And there's also a lot more transparency in that, because there's the governing board in Stockton, which would be the city council, would be holding public meetings about any kind of decision making. There would be opportunities for people to participate in those meetings, voice their opinions, and again, just makes for a very transparent environment. There's definitely a huge potential also for some local economic benefits and job creation. Since 2010, since the first CCA formed, they've been able to support the formation of over 4,200 jobs, not necessarily employed by the CCA themselves, but through coordinating renewable energy projects oftentimes. And so in Stockton's case, what that could look like, city would be essentially this new kind of wholesale buyer on the open electricity market. And there'd definitely be incentive for a renewable energy producer to move into the area and sell power to the CCA, which could mean new avenues for work for community members to build that infrastructure that would be generating the electricity. And the big driving home point there is that takes community input and drive and political willpower. Right, it gives people the power to say, we'd like to be buying energy derived from a local solar farm, but not necessarily a plant that drives energy from fossil fuels. And that would be 3 requests, right? We want it to be renewable energy, we want it to be local, we want to put local people to work doing it. So those are all things that people could, request of their CCA. Moving on to the next one, there's definitely a potential for improved air quality. Over 2,000 megawatts of new renewable energy infrastructure has been built that CCAs were some part of, whether they're coordinating with or purchasing power from a new project. And this is really big because they're able to speed up state renewable energy goals, and really every megawatt of renewable energy infrastructure is one less of energy derived from fossil fuels that we know to be polluting low-income neighborhoods' air quality. So, and then the last point is CCAs operate with this kind of innovation platform where they become this, locally based agency that is ideally, made up of local community members that are employed. They're looking out for their community, their area, providing good customer service, great response time. These are all things that CCAs have been able to provide and have been very educational for folks. Alrighty, so that was a lot for one slide. Let's move on to the next one here. We know that about $100 million is this rough estimate of the amount that leaves the Stockton economy every year. And that would be redirected to local control with a community choice agency, which is a huge amount of money. So the big kind of golden question of why we're all here. So how close is Stockton to actually establishing a CCA? And Vice Mayor Dan Wright is going to speak a lot more to this, but just for the quick kind of nutshell, the city is pursuing a technical study and is currently seeking a consultant for that, and could, depending on what comes back, could see that tech study by the end of the year, we're hoping. So that kind of concludes that slide. You want to move on to, yep. So the Climate Center has also been advocating for community choice in different areas of the Central Valley, including in more broadly San Joaquin County. There's been some interest that things have slowed down with COVID, and that's been kind of the same case for Fresno County as well. These smaller Fresno counties have all expressed interest, but they would want to do it for the most part in a joint powers authority, since they're smaller, and it, as far as resource sharing, it would be the more kind of pragmatic way to go. The community of Tracy in San Joaquin County has opted to join East Bay Community Energy, and Los Banos in Merced County is also in the early exploration stages and has committed to pursuing a technical study as well. So yeah, and I want to invite folks to check out our Facebook page, Community Choice Energy for Stockton, and get more details and updates. And that concludes my presentation. I just wanted to highlight again that I'm really thankful to have all these great panelists on the call. I'm excited to hear from Dan, Jasmine, and Dawn from their kind of perspectives on this. So thank you so much.
Great, thank you very much, Davis. That was a great overview. I am now going to stop my screen share because we are now going to hear from Vice Mayor Dan Wright of the Stockton City Council. And instead of just having his mugshot up here, hopefully with the screen share off, we will be able to hear Dan as he speaks to us. So we've got Davis up on my screen now. Go ahead, Dan, and speak, and hopefully that will work to bring up you.
Hopefully it will.
There you go. I see you, and let me.
Okay, good. I'm still seeing you, so that's interesting. I'll start with a little bit about me and why you would even want to listen to what I have to say about this. Prior to my political experience, I was an educator for 35 years, 25 of it here in Stockton, in educational administration, every level of educational administration. I finished in the 2017-2018 school year as the acting superintendent for Stockton Unified School District and retired at the end of that year. So I have more time to devote to my political activities. I was appointed, going back, I was appointed to a vacant seat on the Stockton City Council in the beginning of the 2015 year, and elected to my first full term in 2016. I was appointed vice mayor in 2018, and I was just reelected to my second term here in March, and I will term out in 2024, barring any unforeseen circumstances. So I've carved a little bit of a niche for myself as a policy specialist on the city council in three particular areas, and that's housing, transportation, and municipal utilities. And I think that's why this somehow fell into my lap as an area of exploration for me. So in addition to my role as a council member, I do chair a couple of the council committees. I chair the water committee, which is another connection to municipal utilities. And more important later, I am the chairperson of the legislative and environmental committee, and that jives quite a bit with what we're doing here. So a little bit about my community choice journey. I was contacted by the Climate Center in late 2015, early 2016. Woody and I go back and forth about when that actually occurred. But he and his staff began a dialogue with me at that time. And we spent a couple of years slow moving on it. And it picked up a lot of steam in 2018 when the mayor's office became a little bit more involved in it with me. And I've worked closely with Max Vargas in the mayor's office and Mayor Tubbs himself to move this forward at a faster rate of speed. I know we've been working on this for 4 years, so nothing seems like it's moving fast, but this is policy, and policy doesn't happen overnight. Around the same time as the interest in CCAs picked up, there was a growing disenchantment with PG&E. We had the Tubbs fire in Sonoma in 2017. And then almost immediately afterwards, the campfire in Paradise. And so people were looking a little bit more closely at energy in California, the feasibility of PG&E continuing on as an investor-owned utility, and this idea of, can we do this differently? And CCAs are a part of that, that idea that, yes, maybe we can do this differently. One of the things that drew me to CCAs was the environmental aspect to it. We as a community get to choose how much of our energy comes from renewable resources. PG&E as an investor-owned utility, they can make that choice as well, but they generally base their decisions on how much they're bringing back to their investors, and that does not always mean that they're using renewable resources. It usually means the opposite, especially when carbon-based sources are cheap. You know, they're not right now, fortunately. And so maybe we'll see some improvement in using of renewable resources. CCAs became a way for communities to deal with this issue of climate change, because from 2017 on, what we were seeing at the national level with our federal government was that they were pulling away from dealing with the issue of climate change, at least as a federal entity. So this gave us some level of control over it. And then that's, again, one of the reasons I'm thinking of it. We have in Stockton a climate action plan, where we're one of the communities that takes this very seriously. We're looking at ways to decrease our carbon footprint. One of the ways we do that is by, sorry, my printer just turned on. One of the ways we deal with that is by not having staff there 10 days every 2 weeks. They have 1 day off every 2 weeks, and so that's less driving. Because of COVID, we've had a lot more remote working as well. And so this gives us, again, an opportunity to decrease our carbon footprint, and CCAs will help us decrease it further. So Davis talked a little bit about our next steps, and the biggest next step is this issue of completing a feasibility study. We started working on that in the later part of 2018, and it just came in front of the council, I believe, back in March. And so it's been approved. The window has closed. We do have applicants to complete the study, and we have a review team working on that right now. It's expected to go to our full council for approval at the first meeting in August. And so that's exciting. Then we begin the work of answering all these questions of how feasible is it for Stockton to move forward with a CCA? And the bigger question, do we want to be our own CCA? Do we want to join an existing CCA? And all of those questions, hopefully, will have a lot of input from our feasibility study. After completing it, it could go a couple different ways. Likely it will move forward to the council for a full vote, and that will require that outreach part that Davis spoke of earlier. We'll reach out to the community, get all the input required for it before making this final decision. There'll be a lot of opportunity for people to voice their concerns and or their support for it. And I'm confident that that will be successful, and we'll move forward in one way, shape, or form to adopting this. Public education will be a huge piece of this. Once the council acts on it, and again, I'm assuming that the council will act affirmatively on this, I think the next step is to making sure that everybody comes along for the trip. We'll have to work with the residents in the community, but we'll also have to work with businesses in the community, because I don't know if you know or not, but most large businesses make their own deals with energy providers. So if we're going to be procuring energy, we want to be the energy provider for all the large businesses in our community as well. So there'll be a lot of work that comes after that, setting up some structures that don't currently exist. And I'm looking forward to it. Exciting. I've got 4 more years on the council, so I'll be here to see it through to its fruition. Thanks, Woody.
Well, thank you very much, Dan, and really appreciate you being here to share that with us. Hope you can stay on all the way through for the Q&A. And I just want folks to know it's been a real pleasure to work with Vice Mayor Wright on this issue. And you know, he's been a real champion, and he's really dived into the issue and gone to some of the community choice energy conferences and seminars and things like that back in the day when we were still able to do all that stuff. We are now going to move, so thank you, Dan. We are now going to move to oops, hold on just a second here. Pull up the slides for Rise Stockton. And we will have Jasmine Leek, who has turned on her video. Thank you, Jasmine, and unmuted herself. So I will now hand it off to Jasmine Leek, who can give us a little bit of a color on this from her perspective as a member organization of Rise Stockton. So take it away, Jasmine.
Thank you, Woody, and thank you everyone for joining today. As Woody mentioned, my name is Jasmine Leek, and I am the Managing Director at Third City Coalition. We are a partner organization of the Rise Stockton Coalition, and so we're very thankful for you for organizing this for our community and inviting us to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing with the City of Stockton. So I'll just go through quickly and share a little bit about Rise Stockton and what it is. We're a coalition of partners, several partners that have been working together to push forward some really great development and infrastructure projects here in the City of Stockton. And our goal really for doing all of this is to achieve major health, environmental, and economic benefits in some of the most disadvantaged neighborhoods in Stockton. What we do is we work together to do planning and coordination of our activities. We engage in collaborative fundraising, and we also do quite a bit of environmental justice advocacy. So next slide, please. So the ways that we've worked together in the past is, one, we started out working together on a planning grant through the State of California's Transformative Climate Communities program, which is a program of the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund and Cap and Trade. And so we received, in 2018, we received a $170,000 planning grant to engage on a community outreach program where we would engage with residents and try to understand what some of their environmental challenges were and where the opportunities lie. So through the creation of that, we created a sustainable neighborhood plan, which was a roadmap essentially for what our community members wanted to, and residents of the planning area want to see in their neighborhood. And ultimately that has led us to just a couple of weeks ago, positioning us very well to apply for and secure a partial implementation award in the amount of $10.8 million to actualize some of these projects that residents wanted to see. So a big win for our community and for the partners who were part of that project. Along the way, we've grown, we've brought new partners in, we've expanded our reach quite a bit. And so, yeah, we're very excited about that. But it's been several years in the making, and many of our partners are on the call today. So if you're on the call, I hope you're giving yourself a big pat on the back, because it's taken a long journey to get to this point. So next slide, please. I do want to go over a little bit of how we got here. It didn't happen in a nutshell. So just want to mention that our community engagement really is the foundation of our work. Each of our partners brings a unique perspective and constituency group that they represent to the table when we are thinking about how we're going to engage with our community. And through the planning grant outreach process, we were able to engage nearly 2,000 residents through several different methods, including large meetings, small informal conversations, a seminar series that we ran called the Climate Leadership Forum, where we engaged with residents in the planning area, invested in them to be able to learn about these environmental justice issues and really help them to be part of actualizing those projects and really making decisions in a thoughtful way. We also held some surveys, online surveys. So if you got a chance to participate in our surveys, thank you for that. And there's definitely more to come, but we were able to put all of that feedback and information that we received through the outreach process together into a document that is the Sustainable Neighborhood Plan. And so I do want to highlight some of the key priorities from the Sustainable Neighborhood Plan. If you can go to the next slide, there were 7 that came out of that conversation, themes that we identified from residents. And their top issue was energy. Resoundingly, we heard that it's a huge issue for residents and a major concern. People are experiencing high rates of shutoff in our community. They are unable to afford energy upgrades. And this has even become even more exacerbated by the current pandemic. With people staying home more often, we're seeing a major rise in this issue in our community. And I do want to mention that, you know, there were many issues that were brought up through the process. And one of the kind of the elephant in the room really is that much of this is the historical legacy of redlining and other environmental injustices that have happened in the South Stockton and downtown Stockton area. And so it's become the priority of our partners to address these issues in a systematic and methodical way, and really put residents in the driver's seat of how we solve these problems, because they are the closest to the issue. So next slide, please. So the Stockton Rising project, which I alluded to a little bit earlier, that's the $10.8 million portfolio of projects that we're looking at funding, really were born from the objectives of the Transformative Climate Communities grant, which is one, to reduce greenhouse gases, expand economic opportunity, and make sure that the prosperity is shared among all residents, and also improve public health and environmental benefits. So we took that, the basis and the spirit of the program, aligned it with the priorities identified by our residents, and came up with a set of projects that I'm really excited to share a few of them with you. And two of them include energy issues. So one is the Climate Careers Program, which is sponsored by the Rising Sun Center for Opportunity. They engage in youth workforce development and are teaching residents going into residents' homes. Although they're doing it a little bit differently, they've pivoted a bit this summer. But generally in the summer, they'll go in and they'll do an energy upgrade in a residential home, and help people change out light bulbs and other things that will make their home more energy efficient. The other that I want to talk a little bit about is a program from Grid Alternatives called Stockton Energy for All, which is a residential solar installation program, but also includes a special component, an apprenticeship component, where we are retraining or newly training folks for a career in energy, clean energy. And so they are working with more vulnerable groups like our formerly incarcerated members of our community. So they're really helping to bring that opportunity to places where it's very needed in Stockton. So next slide, please. Oh, did my computer freeze? Next slide, thank you. So I do want to just echo that we as a coalition, we support community choice energy for a lot of reasons. As you can see here, there are many benefits of community choice, but the two that really resound with us and our coalition is that one, it will give us an opportunity to design programs that really respond to community needs. So some of these issues that I mentioned earlier around shutoffs and energy upgrades, we hope to be able to address that through community choice in the long run, and really help us all move closer to this goal of an environmentally safe community. And so with that, I'll conclude my presentation. If you can go to the next slide, I've provided my contact information for anyone who may want to reach out or get involved in our work. We certainly appreciate anybody who's interested. You're welcome to give us a call or get involved. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jasmine, and very interesting stuff there, especially the survey that showed that energy bubbled up to the top of the list, of priorities. That's really something. So I want to learn more about that. Oops, what did I just do? Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So we will now move to our final presenter before we get to the Q&A. And just a reminder to folks to please, if you've got a question and you want to ask it, you can go ahead and ask that at any time in the Q&A panel. We will get to questions and answers soon, but before that, we're going to hear from Don Bray. He is the Director of Account Services and Community Relations for Silicon Valley Clean Energy, to give us a perspective from an operating real life community choice agency. So take it away, Don.
All right, thanks, Woody, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all here today. I'll talk a bit about Silicon Valley Clean Energy and our formation and the things that we're working on. But in particular, I'd like to focus on what has really been a very challenging set of circumstances just over the last few months here with the COVID crisis, and what that's really meant to our organization in terms of serving the community and some very new and significant needs in the community. These were not things that we had planned for, of course, coming into this year. So I will spend probably the majority of my time talking about our COVID response, because I think it's an interesting example of how CCAs can serve a community. Next slide, please. So SVCE formed as a joint powers authority back in 2016. We were formed by 13 Silicon Valley communities. Our mission from the very start was to reduce dependence on fossil fuels and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and in so doing, provide clean electricity, of course, but also provide innovative local programs for electrification and decarbonization. Next slide, please. We now serve over 270,000 residential and commercial customers. The population we serve, just to put it in perspective, is on the order of about 700,000 people. I'm not sure exactly how that compares to Stockton, but maybe it's on the same order of magnitude. Since we began, our participation rate has been a little over 96%. So our opt-out rate has been around 4%. And that has stayed very steady since our official launch of service in 2017. We've saved customers over $55 million since launch. We average probably a 4 to 5% discount to PG&E's generation rate, just to give you a sense for our rates relative to PG&E. Our electricity is carbon free. It comes exclusively from renewable and hydro sources, so it's made a big impact on our community-wide emissions. Since launch, we've reduced emissions across our 13 communities by almost 20%. So really significant greenhouse gas emissions reduction impact there. Annually, we commit $6 million to local electrification programs, and this is in the form usually of electric vehicle charging installation, and also electrification programs in residences and businesses. So we have, for instance, a heat pump water heater replacement program where if your gas water heater conks out, we'll replace it with a heat pump electric water heater, which doesn't emit and it's more efficient. And then recently we crossed an important milestone. We've now committed over $1 billion to the construction of new renewable facilities. These are 7 different projects. 5 are solar plus storage projects, 4 of which are in the Central Valley, and then 2 geothermal facilities as well. So major commitment to renewables. And these new projects come online starting next year, over the next couple of years after that. So between 2021 and 2023, these projects will be producing electricity that'll supply about 40% of our overall load. And we're continuing to add new projects to the mix and make new commitments to new construction. Next slide, please. So everything was going quite smoothly. We were operating well relative to our plan. And then in February, the COVID thing started to emerge. And by March, it was becoming clear that it was going to have a very significant impact on our community. As of about March 15th, the shelter-in-place order came to Santa Clara County. We were one of the first counties to really see cases, and the county took very significant action right at the start. So shelter-in-place was ordered, and we immediately saw a 25% reduction in our small and medium business load, and about a 10% reduction in our large commercial load. We saw residential electricity use actually go up, not surprising because people were having to stay at home versus going to their place of work. So overnight, a really significant impact to our operation and to our community. So our board realized that we had to do something pretty significant to address this. And as we were thinking about it, we wanted to make an immediate impact, basically get money out into the community where it was needed right away. But we also wanted to be spending money on things that were mission aligned. I mean, really focused on this long-term goal that we have of reducing emissions across the community. So we thought about those two things together as we designed our response to the COVID challenge. Next slide, please. So we really formed two major threads in our response program. One was customer relief, which was getting money immediately into the community to customers that most needed it in the form of rate relief or bill relief. And then the second part was community resilience, working to make investments in improved critical facilities that could help the community deal with crisis, be it a pandemic, be it a public safety power shutoff, earthquake, or other issue that represented a threat to the community. Next slide, please. So the board decided in May, this is only 6 or 7 weeks after the crisis really hit, that we would dedicate $10 million to these customer relief and community resilience programs in the form of income qualified credits to Carafera customers and to local small businesses. We established a contractor workforce training program and an associated stipend, and then a energy resilience program for critical facilities across our communities. And I'll provide a little more detail on each of these in the subsequent slides here. Next slide, please. So $10 million in total, about $3.5 million to direct bill credits to customers, $1.5 million to what we called workforce relief, and then another $5 million to community resiliency. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yep, there we go. So in terms of relief to residential customers, we are providing $100 bill credits to residential Carafera customers. So these are customers that have been on an income qualified rate program through PG&E. Approximately 10% of our customer base is on a Carafera program. These customers are receiving $50 credits in May or in June and in July. So we've already applied about half of this money as of today. So over $1 million now has gone out in credits to these residential customers with more to follow throughout the remainder of July. Next slide. For our small businesses, and we heard a lot from the small business community, and if we had more money to spend, this is where we would spend it. Just a tremendous impact here to so many small businesses that basically just had to stop operating. So we sent out letters to 10,000 small businesses saying that they were pre-qualified for a $250 bill credit, which would on the average be about a month's worth of their electricity bill. And then they needed to respond through our website to get that money, but that was all they had to do. They just had to tell us how they were impacted, and then they would receive the money. So far, we've credited about 2,000 customers, small and medium business customers with these credits, and applying more every day. Next slide, please. In the workforce relief space, this one we really thought about, again, our mission, and again, we're supporting electrification broadly in the community. There's a real need to educate the contractor and trades communities on electrification. So we're putting together a very comprehensive online series of training courses, 5 courses, and if a contractor or a tradesperson takes this series of 5 courses, they earn a $500 stipend. So it's paid education. It's about a 5-hour commitment. So good return on time invested. And it really helps advance what SVCE is all about, which is getting education on the new solutions that are available for electrification. Think heat pump HVAC, heat pump water heating, solar storage, induction stoves. It's coursework that deals with that kind of content, and it's getting it out into the trades community. So we're working with the local union organizations in getting contractors and tradespeople signed up for these programs. We're looking to begin delivering this training in August. Quite a bit of work is going into putting the training together. As you might imagine, 5 hours doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot of work to put technical training together that is going to be provided in this kind of a format. But we're very excited about this and getting lots of interest in advancing this to other parts of the state. We're also providing $500,000 to incentives for contractors and tradespeople to install electrification related solutions at their home or place of work. So again, think heat pump HVAC or heat pump water heating. So this is specifically focused on providing money to the trade community for 2 things. One, improving their home or place of work, and then providing them some compensation for that, and they gain the experience in the installation at the same time. Next slide, please. So finally, the last $5 million is being focused on improving critical facilities, facilities that serve communities in the time of need. Again, think public safety power shutoffs or heat storms, or increasingly what we're dealing with right now, testing centers for COVID and the like. So these facilities have to stay up full time, regardless of whether the grid power is on or not. So we're looking at solar plus storage solutions for designated critical facilities, be it a fire station or a community center or the like. The money is being apportioned across our 13 communities based on their load. So the largest community, Sunnyvale, will get almost $1 million. The very smallest communities will get tens of thousands of dollars to deploy to local facilities. So this is going to be a longer term investment. We imagine this will be something that will take a year or two to deploy in many of our member communities. So if you think back to that balance slide I showed at the start, this would be in the long-term investment category. But again, very much focused on community need and what our communities were telling us they most needed at this time.
Hey, Don, just real quick, we're running a little short on time,
Okay.
so I want you to complete your presentation, but maybe if you want to just pick up the pace of it, that would be good.
This is the last slide. So, this is, again, money going directly to deployment of these new technologies, solar and storage at critical facilities. So shovel-ready projects, we're already beginning to spend money in 2 of the communities on this right now. Next slide. So that's it. Again, happy to answer any questions on SVCE's formation or other programs we offer, or how we've been dealing with the COVID crisis. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks very much. And we do have some questions that have come in, and I am going to ask Davis and or Nina to please read off some of those questions that have come in. So Davis, can you start up with that?
Yep, let's jump in real quick. We're just going to take them by the order we've gotten them. So Mary Elizabeth asked 3 questions. Does PG&E give a care credit on transmission costs if customers are not using PG&E for generation costs? How does community choice energy tie into climate action planning and the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee? And will the city have the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee getting involved and providing an opportunity to incorporate the climate leadership developed during the transformative climate work? So do Dan or Jasmine want to take these or address this?
Yeah, yes. Well, a lot of this is still being built, first of all. But I can assure Mary that there will be a outreach component that will bring in all of the different committees that have been working on climate related topics when we move forward on this. We'll be outreaching to the regular community, but we'll also be outreaching to our existing partners in climate improvement.
All right. There was also a question from Pandora Crowder about how would the billing look in regards to charges to residents' bills, such as PG&E adding a surcharge if a resident chooses to opt into this program. Woody or Don, imagine.
I think maybe Don can take that one. Don, would you want to take that one?
Yeah, and there was a question in the previous set around CareFira. The CareFira discount applies whether you are a CCA customer or a PG&E customer, and it's the same discount. So that's a very important question, and just want to be clear on that. There's no disadvantage to a customer coming to a CCA relative to the CareFira discount. In terms of, I'm not sure I understood the second question exactly, but it sounds like concerns over a surcharge that could be applied.
The question as it's written is, how would the billing look in regard to charges on a resident's bill? So I think the key thing to say there is that it's not an additional charge. It basically, the community choice, it is correct that you still just receive one bill, and it's a bill from PG&E in this case. And that the CCA's charges replace a line item on the current bill for generation, because the CCA, again, is just responsible for the generation portion of the bill, not the transmission and distribution part. So that's the first part of that question. And then the other question is PG&E adding a surcharge if the resident chooses to opt into the program. And Don, maybe you could just say a little bit about the exit fee, but we don't need to drill into great detail because that is the piece there.
Right. So yeah, the way that it works, if you join a CCA, you pay the CCA for generation fees like what you described, and it's in the final page of the bill. So the SVCE page is the final page in the PG&E bill. There's also this exit fee, or PCIA fee as it's known, that's on the PG&E side of the bill that is charged to CCA customers. But when you put our generation costs together with that PCIA, we're still less than what PG&E originally charged for generation. So that sometimes takes a little explaining, but it's easy to show a customer how they're getting a better deal by being with the CCA.
Thank you, Don. Davis, other questions?
All right, we also received a question from Margot Kraus. It was, if I already own solar panels, how does my energy production merge with the CCA? Don, do you think maybe you could talk about net energy metering and Silicon Valley Clean Energy's program there?
Sure. All of the CCAs support solar customers, support a NIM tariff. We actually have a tariff that's a little bit more favorable than PG&E's in that if you overproduce over the course of a year, you get paid back more by us than you would by PG&E. Otherwise, it operates exactly the same as it does with PG&E.
And I'm seeing this question coming in from Jonathan Pruitt. I'd like to jump in and pose this one and maybe respond to it, at least kick off a response. He asks, is there a way to see the budget from the other CCAs around the state, like for example, the executives' salaries? And I want to say to this that it's one of the great advantages to community choice energy over sort of the private investor-owned utility model is that these are public agencies, and so the transparency that Davis mentioned earlier, all of these agencies do have quite high transparency, and they're at their websites. You can folks are able to weigh in on decision-making meetings and see the financials of all of these. It's all publicly available information, the financials for all of the community choice agencies. So it's really what speaks to the energy democracy aspect, opening up our energy world, energy sector for more scrutiny from the public and an opportunity to weigh in. So that's a big chunk of my answer there. Don or anyone else want to weigh in on that?
No, pretty much covered it.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. Any other questions? That I think we're coming close to the, got a couple minutes left. So maybe if there's one more question, either in the Q&A or in the chat box. Davis, did we get one?
Yeah, I think Jasmine, she'd mentioned that she'd like to address one of Mary Elizabeth's questions. Want to go ahead, Jasmine?
Sure. Yeah, I did want to just respond really quickly to one of Mary Elizabeth's questions about the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee. Some of you know I was a former member of the Climate Action Plan Advisory Committee, and I just want to pose that I think that that is a really appropriate place for having more of these conversations. The Climate Action Plan was a big component. Like, we reviewed the Climate Action Plan in developing the Sustainable Neighborhood Plan and really address some of the voluntary measures that are in the Climate Action Plan. And there's a real need to update that document as well. So if there's a way we can do that through this process, or even having this process jumpstart that, I think that we should definitely engage in it. So thanks for the question, Mary Elizabeth. And if you are interested, you always have an opportunity to reach out to us and get involved with the work that we're doing. We would love to have you.
Thanks for jumping in there, Jasmine. And with less than a minute left, I would like to offer to Vice Mayor Dan Wright the opportunity for any final closing comments. Sorry if I'm putting you on the spot there, Dan, but you have any closing thoughts for us?
Just that I think this has been a great dialogue. I was really happy with all the questions that we received. They're on target, nothing out of the ordinary there that you wouldn't have expected. I appreciate the work of all the other panelists here today, your work, Woody and Davis, in setting this up. It's gone really well, and I look forward to our next steps and to bringing community choice aggregation to Stockton.
Great. Well, thank you all. Thanks to all the panelists. Thanks for everybody who joined us here today. Really appreciate it. And there's a lot to learn about community choice. So please, oh, you know, I need to go to my final closing slides here. So let's see, screen share. Sorry, we do have a final set of closing slides with some upcoming events and things. There we go. And I want to close this one, and okay. So just really quick here, I'll race through these. Stuff that folks can do to, you know, learn more, help educate, learn more about community choice, encourage elected leaders. I don't think you need to do much with Dan Wright, but the other elected leaders on the Stockton City Council or at the San Joaquin County Board of Soups. We do have a Friends of Community Choice Energy list that people and organizations can sign on to, so please do that. That's the Friends of Community Choice statement right there. All of these slides will be shared in our on our website in the recording section, so you'll be able to see that in more, you know, read it at your leisure. I do want to make a plug for our Climate Safe California program. It's our flagship program, and that's a program that folks are invited to endorse. Read about it there at climatecenter.org/climatesafeca. All about reaching, getting California on track for carbon negativity by 2030 and having the policies in place at the state level by 2025 to do that. Some dates and reminders. Again, the webinar will be posted at our website. On July 17th, this Friday, we have a climate justice town hall coming up. So inviting folks to join, to participate in that. Davis's counterpart in Fresno, Destiny Rodriguez, will be presenting on that one with a California Environmental Justice Alliance representative. And on August 5th, we will be hosting a Community Energy Resilience Summit. That's all about how communities can bolster their ability to weather the various storms, firestorms, and other earthquake and whatever kinds of things that can cause the grid to go out. How do we get through those episodes? So that's what that's going to be all about. And with that, I will now bring our webinar to a close. Thank you very much. Thanks to all our presenters and everybody who attended. And we'll see you next time. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.